Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the books I read in January and February. These are in no particular order. I also read over 30 books between these 2 months, so I'm not going to talk about all of these books just because it would make for a very long video, and I feel like I would get bored if I would have to talk about all of these books. I also didn't enjoy all of these books that I read, and I don't really find it enjoyable talking about books I don't like, and I want to enjoy making these videos. If you would like to see every book I read, feel free to check out my Goodreads, and I will leave a link for that down in the description. I'm also going to put a disclaimer that just because I didn't talk about a book here, that does not mean that I did not like the book. I would also love to hear about some of the books you've been reading, so make sure you comment those down below. I'm starting off with The Sun Does Shine: How I Found Life and Freedom on Death Row by Anthony Ray Hinton. In 1985, at the age of 29, Anthony Ray Hinton was arrested and charged with 2 counts of capital murder in Alabama. He knew this was a case of mistaken identity and believed that the truth would prove his innocence and set him free. However, he didn't have money back then, and there was a different justice system for the poor black man in the South. Therefore, he was sentenced to death. Anthony found himself living in silence and full of anger for being an innocent man that was living on death row. But he realized in order to survive, he had to begin to find a way to live. He became a light and source of hope to the other men that were in death row as well as the guards. Through his time in death row, his court case went through the justice system many times and it was always denied. With the help of his civil rights attorney, Brian Stevenson, who was unwilling to give up finding a way to help free Anthony, Anthony was released from prison in 2015 after 30 years of being wrongly convicted. You know the ending right at the beginning, that he gets released from prison. But even though I knew the ending, I still wanted to read to see what would happen next. It shows how Anthony was truly able to forgive those who had wronged him and took so much of his life away from him. I loved reading about his time in death row and how he was able to make a difference in the lives of the prisoners and the guards who were with him on a daily basis in death row. This was such an engaging and powerful book. This was also the book I read for the BuzzWordAthon hosted by Books and Lala on YouTube. And the prompt for January was the word life or death in the title. Things You Save in a Fire by Katherine Center. Cassie is one of the best firefighters in Texas. She just recently received an award for her bravery. But one day, her estranged mother from Boston calls and asks if Cassie can come live with her for a year because her eyesight is failing and she needs some help doing things around the house. This means that Cassie would have to give up her job in Texas, and Cassie doesn't really want to do that, but Cassie decides that she is going to move to Boston and help her mother. Cassie gets a job working at the fire station in Boston, and the fire station in Boston has never had any female firefighters, so it takes some time getting used to from the male firefighters. The fire station also hired a brand new rookie the very same day Cassie arrived, and Cassie thinks this rookie is very handsome, but Cassie doesn't fall in love, and her old chief captain gave her the advice not to date firefighters. As a woman, you have to earn your place as a firefighter, and Cassie doesn't want to slip up in love or jeopardize her career and not be taken seriously. I loved all of the themes that this story had: courage, vulnerability, honesty, and forgiveness. I also read this book for the BuzzWordAthon by Books and Lala as my prompt for February, and the prompt was the title had to have a verb in it. So a verb is an action word, and so the word I used from the title was save. When the Day Comes by Gabrielle Meyer. Libby has 2 lives. One is in 1774 colonial Williamsburg, and the other one is in 1914 New York. Libby has the gift of time travel. When she goes to sleep, she wakes up in her other life without any time passing. On her 21st birthday, Libby must choose which life she will keep and which life she will forfeit. In 1774, she feels like she has a purpose in life with her newspaper printing business, and she wants to marry the love of her life, Henry. In 1914, she is from a very wealthy family, and they want to see her married to have more alliances, not for the sake of love. The only thing Libby cares about in this world is women's suffrage, and her family does not support that. Libby also has no desire to get married without being loved. Libby knows exactly which life she is going to choose, but her 21st birthday is still 13 months away, and lots can happen in 13 months. I absolutely love this story. I kept wondering how the story was going to end, and I don't think there could have been a better ending. Everything was tied up perfectly. I think this book shows us that as much as we want to control our lives, we're not in control of them. And only God is truly in control of our lives, no matter how much we want to be in control of our lives. I'm really looking forward to reading the second book that's coming out in May. Foster the Family by Jamie C. Finn. Jamie offers practical tips for foster families navigating the broken system. She shares her life, the normal everyday stuff, the good, the hard, and everything in between. She writes honestly and empathetically and with a lens on the gospel on topics such as it's okay to feel confused, heartbroken, and joyful at the same time. Scripture offers truth and comfort about families in any form. No two children cases or challenges are the same. The foster care system is challenging but not impossible, and being a foster parent can be the hardest and best call of your life, but there is hope. One of the reasons I wanted to read this book is because I follow Jamie on Instagram at Foster the Family, where she talks about foster care. When I finished reading the book, this is the review that I wrote on Goodreads. This is a great resource not only for foster parents, but for all Christians. And I truly believe that. Even though this book is directed to foster parents, there are many things that you can take away from the book if you're not a foster parent. A few of the topics that Jamie speaks about that every Christian can relate to are worshiping God, prayer, waiting, being faithful, and community. The Bake Shop by Amy Clipston. Christina loves to bake and has a little roadside stand just outside her house where she sells her baking to Englishers. She wants to move her business to the local market because she is tired of people coming to her house at all hours of the day or night asking for food, and also 3 of her cousins have a booth at this market. The first day that she moves to the market, she literally runs into a guy named Jeff by spilling coffee on him. Christina learns that Jeff's booth is right next to hers, and eventually Christina and Jeff start a friendship, but Jeff has a hard time trusting people due to previous relationships. Over time, Christina and Jeff get more serious with each other. One day, Jeff asks Christina if Christina would like to come to his church one Sunday. Christina says yes, they agree, and they go, and when they're leaving, Christina asks Jeff if he would like to come to her church next Sunday, and Jeff thinks that is a great idea. Christina's dad comes to the market and sees Jeff using electricity to make a profit on his items, and the Amish are forbidden to use electricity, and this is why Christina's dad is so upset. So now Christina is forbidden from spending more time with Jeff, and that night Jeff was going to ask permission from Christina's dad to date her. Now that they are unsure of their future, Christina and Jeff try to fix things with Christina's dad so that they can be together. I really love the theme of forgiveness throughout the story. Like I said earlier, there are 3 other cousins at the market. So there's the farm stand, and this is Selena. There is the coffee corner, and this is Bethany's story. And there is the jam and jelly nook, and this is Leanna's story. Long Way Home by Lynn Austin. Peggy is very excited because her best friend Jimmy just returned home from the war. In Europe, he saw many horrors of the war, and now he has returned home, and he is a changed man. He no longer has the desire to live, so his parents take him to a hospital that they hope will make him better. Peggy has decided that she is going to find out what the change is that has happened in Jimmy by contacting his war buddies, specifically asking who this photo is of the woman that Jimmy has a photo of. One day, one of Jimmy's friends, Joe, comes to visit. Joe didn't realize that Jimmy was in the hospital, and Joe thinks that the hospital is one of the worst places for Jimmy to get better. Joe has also been having a hard time dealing with the things he saw in the war as well. Joe is also able to hear the stories of some of Jimmy's war buddies, but Peggy never knows when Joe will show up because he drives all over the country on his motorcycle. Gisela and her family are fleeing Germany on a ship to Cuba, hoping to get away from Germany because they are Jews. On the ship, Gisela meets Sam and they fall in love. However, the ship doesn't dock in Cuba, and the ship ends up going back to Europe, and both of their families end up being placed in Belgium. They are both young, and Gisela's parents think they should enjoy their childhood before they settle down and get married. Gisela's parents encourage her to go to nursing school where she will be safe of persecution. One day, Sam takes Gisela to visit her family, and Sam tells her family that now is the time to go into hiding. Gisela's father is sick, so he has decided to stay at the house until it is no longer possible. Gisela's sister, Ruthie, has been placed in an orphanage where other Jewish children are hiding. Gisela also has to be transferred to a different hospital with a different name. Before Gisela leaves, Sam comes and says goodbye and promises to visit her as much as he can. I realize I just talked about these 2 stories as if they're 2 different stories, but as you go and read the book, you'll slowly see how these stories connect to each other. Lynn Austen has such a gift for writing impactful and powerful historical fiction stories. I also really appreciated that Lynn Austen centered this story around faith in Jesus and outlined such a clear view of salvation into the story. She used people and situations from the Bible that related to how her character in this story was feeling, and in the way she wrote it, we as the reader can easily relate to these people and situations from the Bible as well. I'll Push You by Patrick Gray and Justin Skeesuck. This is my third time reading the book. The very first time I read this book, I wrote a blog post on it, so I will leave a link for that blog post in the description. In this video, I'm going to talk about specific things that stood out to me this time I read it. Justin and Patrick were born less than 2 days apart in the same hospital. They were best friends their whole lives. They grew up together, went to school together, and were the best man in each other's wedding. Justin was diagnosed with a neuromuscular disease that took away the use of his arms and legs. The friends refused to give in to despair or let physical limitation control what was possible for Justin. Justin heard about the Camino de Santiago, a 500-mile trek through Spain. He even wondered aloud to Patrick if the two of them would ever be able to do it, and Patrick's response was, "I'll push you." The first quote that stuck out to me this time was, "If we live in fear and never try, if we never attempt something scary or daunting, if we don't push ourselves, the only limits we face are the ones we place on ourselves, the ones we fabricate in our minds." I liked this one because it is important that I do things out of my comfort zone and not just do or live the comfortable things of life. I'm going to read page 188, but before I read, I'm going to explain a little bit of what's happening. So Justin and Patrick are reading an email that someone sent to them who had helped Justin climb up the mountain. This lady, Claudia, wrote what happened in her journal. Since there is lots of time walking on the trail, many people share their life stories. So this is a follow-up on one of the life stories. Back on the steep hill, we are finally within 20 meters of the top. "The final push," grasps Patrick, while Justin sings a slightly out-of-tune rendition of That's What Friends Are For. John, the oldest in our group by a good few decades, has tapped out, and we have replaced him with a passing pilgrim called Matt, who is now in their harness next to me, ready to pull like an ox. Patrick's sweat is cascading down his face, and the two Swiss girls next to him look like they are equal parts exhausted and excited. "We've been fighting our way up this hill for almost an hour and a half. Ready?" asks Patrick. "Yes, we're ready," we all reply. And we're off, inching our way, a choir of heavy breathing. As we get closer to the top, Justin begins a countdown. 10, 9, 8. No, I think to myself, this can't be happening. The last time I did a countdown, it was followed by unimaginable cruelty. 7, 6, 5. Maybe I should ask them to stop. 4. My calves are aching. 3. I'd be happy if I'd never have to endure another countdown for the rest of my life. 2. I don't know if I can do this, but I'll do it for Justin. 1. We get to the top and we're hugging each other, doing a victory dance, celebrating and kissing each other on the cheeks. And I'm crying because I didn't believe that a countdown from 10 could be ever happy again. The thing I found really powerful in that story is many times we don't think we will find happiness or joy in the things we used to because of our life experiences. But through time with God's healing, we're able to experience those things again that we never thought we would be able to. With this quote, Justin is coming to the realization that healing is not going to come in his earthly life. He says, "God, I don't know why this is happening, but if you're not going to heal me, at least make it mean something. Let me be your vessel. Let me be your light, because I don't know what else to do." I think this is such a powerful statement. Our suffering always means something, but we have to be the ones to make our suffering meaningful, not just to us, but to those in the lives around us who are watching us go through suffering. I'm going to read page 228, and before I read this, I'm going to explain what's going on. So Patrick has been very upset with God for 2 years that God allowed this disease to take over Justin's life. And his family came back to visit Patrick and his family who lived in Idaho for a week. On Sunday, everyone went to church. After the service, Justin and Patrick got into a conversation with the associate pastor, Ed, who knew both of them very well. After our discussion came to a close, Ed and Justin continued talking quietly off to the side. In their conversation, I overheard Ed ask Justin, "If you could receive physical healing right now, would you choose it?" I was certain I knew what Justin's response would be. "Of course," but Justin looked up at Ed from his wheelchair and with authority said, "No." Dumbfounded, all I could think was, wait, he said no. In a moment, when time seemed to stand still, it hit me. This wasn't my fight. For the past 2 years, I had been angry because the battle I had been fighting was a losing one. My friend was slowly wasting away, and there was nothing being done. So focused on his apparent need for physical healing for the miracle, I had failed to recognize what Justin really needed. He needed me to step into the real battle. He needed hands and feet, my hands and feet. The miracle had already happened. That's when I realized that more often than not, the miracle isn't the absence of struggle, disease, or pain. It's the presence of grace and certainty, the ability to face strife, the unknown, or a slow death without fear. My obsession with divine intervention has distracted me from the truth that God had already intervened. We desperately want provision to make sense on our terms, bills paid, food on the table, and sickness taken away. But simply waiting on God and being angry when he doesn't show up the way we want him to is a perverted sense of provision. Make no mistake, I believe that physical healings still happen, but God has made it pretty clear that while he answers prayers, those answers are based on his understanding, not our own, and when it comes to God's provision for the world, we are his front lines, or at least we should be. Like Patrick says, we should be more focused on serving people than wishing their pain and suffering would go away. I really enjoyed this book. I found it very engaging, impactful, and powerful. I also wanted to talk about the books I read for the Ring in the New Books January Read-a-thon that I participated in, that was hosted by Bethany Brings Books and Paperbacks and Ponytails. I will say I completed all the squares on the Read-a-thon except for participate in the buddy read, which is Genesis 1 to 11, and read the rest of the book of Genesis. But I did read my Bible every day, so I'm going to count that for those 2 squares, and hopefully Bethany and Katie don't mind. Read a book featuring a new theme. So the book I chose for that was Miracle for Jen by Linda Barrick. Jen is coming home with her parents and her brother from church one evening, and they are hit by a drunk driver, and Jen ends up in the hospital, and she later wakes up and she has a brain injury. So now this family has to get used to their new normal, and this is why I put it in the category of new beginnings, because they have to get used to their new normal. Reread an old favorite and see if you have any new opinions, and Countdown to Midnight. Read a book with a number in the title, so I used one book for 2 prompts, and the book was I'll Push You, A Journey of 500 Miles, 2 Best Friends in One Wheelchair by Patrick Gray and Justin Skeesuck. I just finished talking about this, so I'll leave a timestamp down in the description if you missed it. Try a new author, someone whose debut novel was released during last year. For that one, I chose Foster the Family by Jamie C. Finn. I also talked about that one in detail in this video, so you can click the timestamp if you missed that. Her book was released in February of 2022. What's Old is New Again. Read a book that was popular 30 years ago. So for that, I read Knowing God by J.I. Packer. I thought it was a great book, definitely a book everyone should read. The reason I put it in the popular 30 years ago category was because it was first published in 1973, and then there was a new edition published in 1993, which was 30 years ago, so I thought if there was a new edition published that year, it must have been popular, so that's why I put it in that category. Free Space, Reader's Choice, I chose Long Way Home by Lynn Austin. If you missed what I said, I'll leave a timestamp in the description. Ring in the New Year with a new series, I chose When the Day Comes. The second book is coming out in May. I'm really looking forward to this, and I already know that this is going to be in my top books of 2023. If you missed what I said earlier in this video, you can click the timestamp in the description. And those were all the books that I read for the Ring in the New Books. Thanks for watching this video. If you haven't already, make sure to comment some of your recent reads down below. Remember to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any future videos I post. Also, don't forget to like and share this with anyone you think might enjoy. Thanks for watching!